Hello again. Here's another look back at one of the great orphan cars of the age. This time we'll take an abbreviated look into the history and downfall of Packard. The company was founded by electrical engineers James Ward Packard and his brother William and their partner George Weiss back in 1899. Back in 1898, cars were the new thing on the block, and James decided to buy one of these new marvels. But on the way home with his new car, it broke down several times and finally required a tow home with a pair of horses. Packard wrote to Winton letting him know of the poor quality of his car, to which Winton replied, "If you can build a better one, go ahead and do it." Well, that's a challenge that Packard accepted. It started with a small plant in Warren, Ohio, where 400 Packard automobiles were turned out from 1899 to 1903. During that time, Packard invented the steering wheel, doing away with the tiller. At that time, cars were selling so well that Packard never put out any sales literature. A potential customer asked Packard about the quality of his cars, to which James replied, "Ask the man who owns one." It's a slogan that stuck. Sales were so good, investors started showing up at the doorstep. And then in October of 1902, Henry Joy and other financial backers bought a majority share in the company and later renamed it Packard Automotive Company. They moved the operations to a larger plant in Detroit. The Packard brothers had no wish to move to Detroit, and they remained in Ohio. Joy became company president in 1909. Turning the presidency over to Alvin McCauley in 1916. Under their leadership, Packard made great strides. In 1915, Packards were selling for a base price of $2,600. That was quite a lot back then, when most cars could be bought for under $1,000. Packards were top-selling luxury automobiles from 1924 to 1930, with markets worldwide. After the Depression hit in 1929, the company came out with a lower-priced car, but only for 1 year. In 1931, Packard introduced an innovation called ride control that made hydraulic shock absorbers adjustable from within the car, depending on road conditions. The plant would grow to 3.5 million square feet and become state-of-the-art. Packard was credited with a lot of firsts. More on that if you go to Google and type in Packard firsts. This is Harry's 1937 Packard convertible coupe, once owned by actor and musician Hoagy Carmichael. Although when Harry bought it, he didn't know the car belonged to Hoagy. During the Depression era, Packard remained a highly profitable luxury line, while others closed their doors. In the 30s, Packard ran a single production line using interchangeable parts to keep costs down. In my opinion, the 1930s were Packard's heydays. Beautifully designed automobiles, high quality, and plenty of horsepower. That famous Packard grille is unmistakable. From 1931 to 1933, Packard built cars in Windsor. Canadian production was not limited to cars, but also tires, upholstery, radiator cores, headlamps, springs, and wheels. Engines were locally assembled. A Windsor office remained for several years after the plant closed in 1933. By the mid-30s, times were changing, and for the first time, Packard made a car in the mid-price range, and that was the 120. It was produced from 1935 to 1937 and from 1939 to 1941 model years. And commentary from owner Jerry.
Although there's 39 Packards around, it had every option that you could buy in that year. So, and they're all period correct and so on. We love the skirts and the trip lights in the front. It even has a semi-automatic transmission called the electromatic clutch.
Many saw this lower price trend as the start of Packard losing control of the luxury car market. Aftermarket air conditioning units were available for automobiles from 1933. But in 1939, Packard became the first production company to offer air conditioning in some of its cars at a hefty price tag for the air conditioning of $274. That's close to $5,000 in today's money. It wasn't very successful, though, and took up a good part of the car's trunk. 1940 was a better year for what they called weather conditioning, but it would not be until 1953 that Packard and other companies would develop a satisfactory air conditioning system that worked properly. When the U.S. entered the war in 1941, all car companies, including Packard, ceased auto production to concentrate on war supplies. Packard produced the Merlin aircraft engines under contract with the U.S. government. Later, those same engines would set speedboat records. War's end saw what might have been the beginning of the end for Packard starting in the late 1940s. Many believe that Packard should have continued the niche market of making luxury cars rather than medium-priced and lower-priced automobiles. And then there was management. Alvin McCauley had retired in 1948, and possibly poor selections were made to his replacements as company president. There were costly delays in producing upgrades to the 1954 model. The top of the line was the Patrician. Another concern, Packard was only producing flathead engines up to 1954. Other companies were turning out V8s. The first V8 for Packard appeared in 1955 and 1956, a 352 V8 and a 374. Like a lot of things, it may have been too little too late. The engine upgrade delay was due to an executive decision to have some parts built in-house. Parts were supplied by American Motors, a merger between Calvinator Nash and Hudson Motor Company. With that build-it-ourselves decision, American Motors opted out of making engines for Packards. One such V8-powered car was Bonner's 1956 Clipper that he found in a scrapyard. It seems like Packard executives made error after error, and then the most critical error of all, perhaps the worst decision in automotive history. Here is Packard enthusiast Terry with that story.
Well, the story is in 1954, Packard bought Studebaker, and Studebaker was in such financial straits that they actually bankrupted Packard. It was a disastrous decision.
It almost seems that Packard execs never had a look at Studebaker's books. Packard was hoping to cash in on Studebaker's many dealerships. After the 1958 badging of what was a Studebaker look-alike, the Packard name was gone.
So in '56, Packard sold their downtown Detroit plant. At that point in time, could no longer make big-bodied Packards, so they started making Packards out of Studebaker Presidents.
The once state-of-the-art 3.5 million square foot Detroit Packard factory was sold off and would become derelict and an eyesore. A tragic end to a once great company. However, Packard's days may not quite be over just yet. There's a Canadian angle to creating a new Packard. It's an interesting read. Go to Google again and type in Packard Gullickson Ask the Man Who Owns One for more information. Make sure you use all of those words in the title in Google to get the right page. Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this look at Packard, its rise, and its downfall. Thank you for viewing, and we'll see you soon.